Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Heart of Oneness Network channel. My name is K&A, co-founder of the Heart of Oneness Holistic Expo, and I am joined with fellow co-host and founder Matt Riley. The purpose and intention of this channel is to connect hearts far and wide while offering up a container of spiritual enlightenment that supports you on your path of self-discovery and awareness. May you leave today feeling a bit more expansive and filled with inspiration. In today's conversation, we welcome our next guest, Lisa Alexander, to the show. Lisa is a transformational speaker, teacher, healer, and creator of the Alexander method of vibrational sound and energy therapy. Her unique advanced program bridges the gap between science and spirituality to offer healing services through each layer of our existence. As an advocate for improved living, Lisa calls on a diverse personal and professional history to serve individual clients that provides transformational speaking, coaching, and advisory services. So Lisa, welcome and thank you for joining us today, for sharing your incredible work and this healing modality with our viewers and with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very grateful to be here, and known you for a little while, and excited for when we can actually do the live expo. But this is such a wonderful opportunity that you're offering for everybody to learn more and grow more and connect heart to heart. Like you said, I'm actually a heart math practitioner as well, so that connecting from the heart is very, very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have that core resonance with heart math, if you will. I know familiar with Drumballo's work, but definitely, I absolutely love that. And I love that you brought up that we've known each other a little bit. It's kind of funny. I love obviously interviewing everybody, but it's always just a little extra special when you kind of know somebody a little bit more. And I know you and I have shared a mutual friendship, which actually kind of bridged our paths together. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you recall, but it was Noelle, who I believe was actually a client of yours, who came in for a sound healing, I believe, with you. Mm-hmm. And when she was done, I was like one of the first people that she reached out to. She was like, Karen, you have got to meet Lisa. She's like, you are going to absolutely love her. Mm-hmm. And she was right. But interestingly enough, we didn't actually meet in the physical until we did a show together. Mm-hmm. I think we kind of knew of each other. Mm-hmm. And, I think it was just one of those things of kismet, right? And we just met at the exact precise time. And it's just beautiful. And we are so grateful and excited to have you be part of the show. So thank you again, just for taking the time and for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me, because I have heard about you besides Noelle from Brigida, and I are friends. So Brigida's been part of your expo for years, and always spoke highly of you. And then Noelle was one of my first video testimonials on one of my old YouTube channels that I don't even use anymore. She's she's a beautiful light.
Yeah, she really is. Yeah, she truly is. So let's bring it all to the good stuff for everybody, for our viewers. Tell us a little bit about the Alexander method of vibrational sounds and energy therapy.
Okay, so we use high quality medical grade tuning forks tuned to the solfeggio frequencies to open, balance, and align the chakra system and the nadi system. That's just in foundational skills. Then when we go out from there, we will also work in the biofields. We work in the meridians. We even have a section of the modality that works on the physical, because if we don't catch that the emotional distress, and then it actually manifests as dis-ease in our body, we need to work on the physical body, because we are physical, we are emotional, we are mental, we are spiritual beings. And the Alexander method takes care of all of that. So we're not focused on just one thing. We're focused on the wholeness of who we are in these incarnated physical, spiritual, emotional, mental beings. And you can't just like allopathic medicine will cut out one thing, but there's a whole system attached to it. Well, our energy is a whole system, and we need to focus on the whole system and meet people where they're at. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Like the primary thing is by really clearing those chakras, kind of like a roto-rooter, and clearing the energy pathways, the nadis, the Ida, the Bagala, the Shasumna. That's where we get a lot of people say that, and Ivy Noel, they had out-of-body experiences, because once we raise that Kundalini energy and everything's cleared so that the energy can come up, we can have that enlightening experience. And of course, clearing out all the emotions, and we also work on DNA and past life, etc., kind of down on master skills. But the core foundation of it is really working within the chakras and the nadis to really clear those. Those, to me, of all the energy centers, and I work with all of them, I find them the most productive, and I get the best results in clearing them, because we now know medically and scientifically that the chakra centers happen to align to our endocrine system. So thanks to machines like the Squid machine, we know that there's a nerve plexi here, there's a nerve plexi here, there's nerve clusters in each one of these areas that the chakras are known to be. So we can actually measure and know that they are there. And the fact that they're connected to our endocrine system, which connects to our hormonal system, which is all the signaling systems in our body, when we can clear the emotional junk from lifetimes out of us, we just open up the body to heal itself naturally.
Wow. That sounds like such a clear and streamlined process, and yet you just beautifully illustrated for everybody like how complex it really is in terms of just the energy body, the physical body, how it relates and correlates to the DNA on a cellular level. So that's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, the other thing it does is we find it literally raises someone's vibrational rate, because we're working up a scale, the Solfeggio scale. So we start at the root and we work up, and each frequency is higher and higher. And then we even bring in those higher frequencies to the biofields, the meridians, etc. But what I originally called my company when I started Vibrational High, because the universe was sending me people at the time, because I was doing it for free just to try everything, right? And do my own clinicals and my empirical data. Besides all the everyone talks and writes about all the sciences out there about sound therapy, but no one really focuses on what their therapy does. So I needed to know what's my therapy doing. And so I was getting people who were hooked on antidepressants, Valium, or smoking pot, or before it was legal, and so I even had heroin addicts on my table, unbeknownst to me, until they opened up, and I was like, oh shoot, so because I never want to make any promises, but because we literally raised their vibrational frequency rate up, they were having these amazing experiences where they didn't feel the need for those other drugs, because we were providing that high by releasing the endorphins. And we've done blood tests now to see that we actually do that. And so it was great to, get people off, or even get them off their anti-anxiety meds, Ativan, and all those other things that are out there. So I originally called it vibrational high. And then when I was trying to get nationally accredited, I needed branding and I needed all this stuff. And my attorney said, well, the Alexander method, your name is a lot easier to trademark, because it's your name. So we went that way. And then it also, the whole idea of being high could, but it did. People are, a lot of, so it basically, it's like a vibrational hack. So it cuts through years of affirmations and mirror work and vision boards. So people are like instantly having manifestations happen when they're keeping their energies cleared and their vibration high. So that's kind of the other byproduct that we weren't looking for, but it happened.
Wow. That's incredible. Matt, did you have any questions for Lisa? I know.
Sure. I'd like to know how it came into being, because you're here now, but the evolution of the Alexander method and yourself, just so people can understand that the process you've gone to get to this point.
Yeah, a lot of tragedy. It's when we're down at our lowest that we're lifted up. So I was at a point in my life. I actually went to college to be a high school history teacher, and I did that for a little while. But I also ended up kind of being discovered and became a model actress in the city and a spokesperson and traveled all over the world. Had a really amazing life and career. And then in 2000 hit suddenly. 8 days into the new millennium, my father passed away very suddenly. I was only in my early 30s. I had just gotten divorced. I was now alone. I had an apartment in the city, and I had just the year before bought a lake house on Lake Wallenpaupack that he and I were going to work on because my ex-husband kept me away from my family. He was very abusive. I ended up in a women's shelter during my marriage. He was an alcoholic. He was addicted to drugs. I was the money maker. I was making a ton of money. He was just spending it, and I didn't know. He couldn't really hold a job. He was physically abusive. He literally broken bones of me, and that's how bad it was. And, the fear of, I'm going to kill you if you leave me, you don't leave. And you don't tell your parents, you don't want anybody to see anything or know anything. So I was very hidden. Although I had this amazing career on the outside, nobody knew the torture I was literally going through when I came home so it was great for me to be away, be in Europe, be modeling. And in the beginning, he was very jealous of that, but then he saw the money I was making and he didn't care. Right. So I got out of that. And here I was like, a new life. I'm ready to reconnect with my family. Because this is before the days of cell phones. So if I went to Europe, I didn't talk to my parents till I came back home. So we had pagers. That was about the most of what we had. And, I literally within months of all of that happening, and I'm like, Dad, I'm back. He died very suddenly. So that was the first tragedy. And then there was a snowball of tragedies. We had 9/11 in the city. I was still in the city for that. I watched the towers fall. It ripped me apart. And then in between there, just a lot of other things. Then my mom died, and my best friend died, and my cousin was my age. It was just like one thing after another. I did establish another relationship and did remarry, but I had, we went through in vitro. I had 2 miscarriages. This time, this husband was a little different. He certainly didn't do drugs and do any of that, but he was younger and a little immature. So he blew through all the money I made in New York on silly, dumb things, and I didn't know it. And then he even betrayed me in different ways. And, it was just like it was snowball. We bought a farm with all my money, and then we lost the farm. And then in the process of losing that, my storage unit with all my stuff from New York was auctioned off because he didn't pay the bills and I didn't know it. And then it was like, and then my lake house, which was mine prior to him, again, he was hiding so much from me. He wasn't paying the bills. That was in foreclosure. So we literally lost the farm. I lost everything. And I was at a point that I was, if I can get through this without crying, I was sitting alone in my living room of my lake house. I had lost everything and everyone. Everyone close to me was dead. Most of them were dead. And a few that were left betrayed me. And I even lost my job because it was after the crash, the financial crash that everything went on. So the real estate job I had up at the lake, that whole company closed. So I was literally left with nothing and no one. And I'm sitting on my living room floor saying, I'm going to even lose this. And I had a gun in my hand. And the only thing that kept me from using it was my little West Highland Terrier crawled up in my lap because I was just bawling at this point and with the tears away from my face. And I looked at him, and I had another dog as well. I did an older shelter rescue. And I just looked at them and my 3 cats. And I said, but oh my God, if I leave you, who's going to take care of you? They'd be, and where I live, people would probably just shoot them or something, So I put the gun down, and I was on my knees. And I used to always see this kind of like dark thing in my living room, this like darkness. And I looked at it and I demanded it go away. And I called out to God and I said, look, I'm spent. I am drained. There is nothing left in me. I surrender completely to you. And whatever it is I need to do, I said, whatever my mission is, show me now, because either you're going to help me or take me. And Karen and Matt, I swear to God, within 2 days, 2 days of that complete surrender to God, source creator, whatever you want to call it. I come from a Christian background, so I tend to refer to it as God. I got a piece of snail mail in the mail from my homeopathic doctor in Honesdale, Pennsylvania. And this is kind of the sticks. I mean, Lake Walton, Paul Pax is a big vacation area from people from New York and New Jersey. You go a couple miles off, it's the sticks, right?
Yeah.
And, so she said, she's in her 70s. She says, hey, I'm into something new. Come check it out. That was it. I'm like, what do I got to lose? So I go. And she had a quantum metaphysician speaking, who I later trained under, and he's speaking, and I'm resonating with everything he's saying. And he's a Course in Miracles guy, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And there's this attractive middle-aged woman sitting next to me with dark hair, and she said, she blurted out as he's speaking, I keep hearing deconstruction before reconstruction. I'm like, I turned to her, I'm like, you just described my life. And she said, oh, you're the reason I'm here. I'm like, what are you talking? She said, I live in New Jersey 2 hours away. She said, Spirit roused me out of bed this morning and told me I had to drive all the way out to Honesdale, PA to put some light worker on her path. She's overdue for her mission and she's got to get on it and you got to help her.
Oh my God, that's so emotional. Now I'm going to cry.
It was crazy. And at this point, I, didn't know what to make of this. I was still skeptical. And then she grabbed my hand and she said, we're going to have a cup of coffee when this is over. I said, okay, fine. So we go downstairs afterwards, have a cup of coffee. Now I'm a foodie. I'm always hungry. So I got a bagel and stuff and I offered to pay because she only got coffee. It's the right thing to do, the way I was raised. And she grabbed my hand and she said, no, you're not paying. I'm like, no, I'm getting a bit up. And she goes, I know you have no money. I was like, how do you know that? Because this is before Facebook and all the stuff. Besides, I wouldn't put all that out there anyway. This was before all of that stuff. There's no way she could have known. Right. And then as we're talking, she says, I know you have another house. Well, it turned out my mom's house in Nazareth, which is where I now live, this tiny little house I grew up in. My brothers and I were still holding on to it for varieties of reasons. And I said, yeah, I do. She said, that's closer to where I live. Let's start meeting there. So over the course of a few months, we were meeting there pretty regularly. She never charged me. Ever. And she was dead on. So she really made me believe, and she put me on the right path of this physio frequencies, which I now use. She told me to start reading Doreen Virtue, who at that time I never even heard of. And then one day she said, and you're going to discover something new that's going to help a lot of people. And that's when I was like, okay, now she lost it. Now she lost it. What is she talking about? So sure enough, we kind of went through everything we needed to do. She set me on my path and I started playing with these frequencies and working with them and, working on people. And, that to me, that was where she directed me. So I was following that, started seeing angels with my physical eyes. I mean, everything just started opening up. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And then one day, working these, I studied under one of the quantum metaphysicians that spoke, David Holtz. He did a tuning fork modality, but just wasn't resonating with me. It was 20 years old already. And this was right. This all happened 2011, 12, and 13. So right at the galactic alignment, right, of 2012, new energies were coming through. 2011 is when I had my breakdown, right? And that's when I met him and started. 2012, I was developing it. 2013, I came out with it. So it was right at that new energies, new everything. So his stuff was 20 years old. Everybody else's stuff was like 20 years old. And it wasn't resonating. It didn't flow. And I'm like, and then he was only using the 6 aphasia frequencies because that's in the book of Numbers in the Bible. And I'm like, well, but the crown to me is so important. So, I'm a science geek and I'm a little bit of a math whiz. So I'm like, well, if I figure out the numbers of the aphasia frequencies, what would the crown center be? What would that frequency be? It turned out to be 963 hertz. Wow. I was born 963.
Oh, wow.
September 63. Yeah, I give away my age. But when that happened, I was like, that's what she was talking about. That's when like everything came together and I knew that this was my path. Because when I called up my manufacturer, because at that time, nobody was making that fork. Now they've copied it, but nobody was. So I had to get one custom made. Got one custom made, started using it, and then things just took off. Then people were having out-of-body experiences, instant healings, their lives were changing, and I was like, that's what she was talking about.
Wow. That was a fast track.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It was the new energies coming through. It was time for something new. Like with a lot of our the treatment. So I didn't teach anybody for the first 5 years, and then my clients were coming to me saying, "Oh, you got to teach us. You got to teach us." And so I would send them to these other things that were out there already, and they're like, "It's not the same. I took hers. I did that. I took his. It's not what you do." I'm like, I know, but I don't. I actually was a teacher, but it was fear. At that point, it's hard to come out of that closet, as you know, right? That spiritual closet. Because I was really awakening people's intuitive abilities. Mine were wide open. So I'd kind of give people readings of what they needed at a time on the table would come through. I was seeing angels. Jesus was visiting me. And this was not third eye closed. This was eyes wide open, having these experiences and then giving those to other people. So they kind of begged me. In fact, one of my first students, Penny, she was one of the people who said, "When are you going to start teaching this?" Because she loved it. And so she was one of my first students, and there were just 4. And I tried to do it all in one day, which was like crazy. But I started teaching it, and I've retrained people who've taken other modalities. And what I learned was I was very slow at getting out the levels because I was doing all the research on it, getting my own research to see. So some people were frustrated because they loved it so much. So they started taking all the other programs. They'd always come back to me. And one thing I noticed is when one of the students came back for one of my later classes, she, who I hadn't seen in a couple of years, and she came and took the first one. She was talking to my other students about, "Oh, I'm so excited because I worked on someone the other day. I didn't realize she wasn't using my method exactly. She was integrating mine with another woman's modality." And she said, she had a healing crisis, and she was all excited that she had a healing crisis. So my other student, who's been very faithful, who's a psychologist actually, Christine, who had been very faithful and with me all along, looked at me like, "We don't have a healing crisis in this. She must be doing something wrong." And I think that's because of because we were birthed, and I say we because I had a team that was helping me, a spiritual team, right? Literally, the hand will come out and take my hand and show me, how to do this. Because it's something that I knew that we've done in Atlantis before. And where there's no healing crisis in this, because this came in with those new energies, and we are at a higher frequency and a higher vibration, or at least we should be. And when you're at that higher frequency, that higher vibration, you are above the healing crisis. So whenever I hear a past student say they're excited about a healing crisis, I know that they're not staying true to what Spirit gave me. And I don't take any credit for this. Spirit gave me this. And then when I was ready to teach, I said, "Okay, now you got to show me all the research, because I'm a Libra. I got to be balanced between spirituality and science," which is why I'm a big Great Brain fan, right? So you got to show me all the science before I put myself out there and say, "Hey, this is what I do." And they did. And so we had the science to back it up. And there is no healing crisis in this. Now, you might have an emotional release and tears because there's that emotional release. But if you're having a physical healing crisis, there's a little something wrong. And in the process of coming out with this, before I was teaching it, you're probably familiar with Isabel and Reverend Lloyd Mole, who they ran the big spiritual expo in Allentown for 30 years, the real big mum.
The mum.
Metaphysical Universities and Ministries, right. And I trained over there too under Isabel. Well, the first time I did mum, I got this amazing client in who knew as Isabel, and she told Isabel about me. And actually, she was a very wealthy woman, and she started paying for me to go to Isabel and Lloyd. Lloyd passed this year. We lost Lloyd, but go to them. And they're amazing. They were running that expo for almost 30 years. They were in the spiritual thing since the 70s, started St. John's Church, still have it.
Wow.
And they never left, right? So they started seeing expos in New York and brought them to Lehigh Valley. And mum is huge, right? Big expo. It's unfortunately with COVID, all that has stopped as well. But so I was like almost nervous to go into their home and do this because I know they're intuitives and they see and know everything. And when I worked on them, they said it's the tuning forks are amplifying the own energy coming through me. And they're like a radio antenna, bringing in all the right frequencies. And she said what she liked about me personally and my modality is, she said, "Lisa, that point she was doing it for like 25 years. I've been doing this for 25 years. And, I get so tired of these healings." She's an older woman, so you understand. Isabel has throat chakras open, man. She just lays it out like it is. So some people are a little put off by her. I love her. But she just lays it out like they come through and they're doing their healing work. And at the end of the day, they're all complaining how drained and tired they are. Da, da, da. She goes, when I did expos, I never got drained and tired. And she said, you know why? Because if you get drained and you get tired and your physical body's breaking down from doing too much of the energy work, then you're doing it through ego. You're not allowing spirit to do it. And she said, you at the end of the day are so energized. And I am. I would be so, after the end of an expo, after doing these high frequencies all day, I'm like, whoa, I'm up here. I'm ready to run a mile, and I don't run. So I have to really ground myself because because spirit literally came to me to show me this, that I had to honor that you're that bamboo, that open vessel, and you bring that in. And when you allow spirit to do the work, you're never drained, and when I listen to some other people are like, oh, once I got my book out and I did tunings and everyone was coming to me and I was so drained, my physical body was breaking down. So then I started teaching and I'm like, well, then that remind me of what the lesson Isabel taught me, that you're an ego. So I teach that to my students. You've got to step back and just follow this method the way spirit gave it to me and the way science has backed it up. And if you do, you'll have the same repeatable results, right? So if you think of McDonald's, whatever McDonald's you go to, you're going to have the same hamburger, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. And that's what spirit was showing me. You've got to follow this because they've worked this out. And then luckily science caught up with them and I was able to bridge the two. So in our class, we teach a lot of science, which it's a lot to learn. I mean, this is a 6-month program, that foundational skills, it's a lot to learn. But if my students stay true to that, they'll have the same results. And we know that because I've had some of my clients will go around to all my students and they'll report back. And they're like, oh, she's doing it the way, you taught her. And I had the same great experience. Oh, she started adding in all these things she saw on YouTube, which is why I've always stayed away from all the YouTube stuff. Kind of, there's a lot of misinformation. And this wasn't good, and I didn't, So we honor what spirit gave us, and when we do, we're able to produce repeatable results.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. So I guess you could say that that's one of the core things that makes your modality quite a bit different from others, would you say?
Yes. And I was very fortunate at 19 because I was traveling and speaking all over, and then obviously we got shut down. But I got to have meet with Greg Braden and at a private screening, and it was just so amazing because I was a little nervous. There were only 6 of us, and there were a couple people there from the ARE, the Edgar Cayce Association of Research Enlightenment, which I've spoken at several times. So there are a lot of my practitioners down in the Virginia Beach area because a lot of this work resonates with Edgar Cayce. Talked about sound and vibrations. So they've really adopted that. And the one guy that I sat next to said, well, what do you do? And I was like, how do I tell somebody what I do? So I said, well, I help people relax their minds and their brains, because we got brain scans, to help them get into a meditative state. So they are better apt to take Greg's work. Greg is about the heart math meditation. So I was like, okay. Then I got to talk to Greg, and he's amazing. He's just so from the heart. He's so down to earth. He's just love. You look at him, he's just, in person, there's even more love coming out of him. And he sincerely wanted to know more about what I did, not like a little one-sentence thing. And when I explained it to him, he said, you are doing science. You're a scientist. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, because in science, when you do a test, if you do the test and you get the same results every time, that's science. So
I love it.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going on a road trip with him in 2022. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I know. I was actually going to ask you about that. And I know, so now correct me if I'm wrong, but the Alexander method, now that is an accredited program?
Yes. Okay. Well, we're accredited through the National Association of Massage Therapy and Body Workers.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So how does that make it just a little bit different? So for people who may not necessarily know, what is that difference there?
It means it's been reviewed by a board of peers who really scrutinize it and look through it. Yeah.
Okay.
In all honesty, we're not going to be putting through some of the energy therapy parts of it anymore because the board is focusing just on the more body therapy. But they looked at the science and they were like, wow, she's got real research and real science behind this. So that to have that third party peer review board look at it was like, oh, okay, that's some validation to what
Absolutely. It's
Wow.
beautiful validation.
So how does somebody go about getting certified? I mean, it's a big
you
segment.
you can go to my website, and there's a lot of information there. Mostly people reach out to me directly through my website, and we chat. I do interview people. I don't take everyone into the program. And there's a reason for that. I am still the main teacher of it. So although with COVID and everything, we've had I actually started a virtual program prior to this because of all my work at the Edgar Cayce place. People were coming from all over different states just to hear me speak. And so we started an online program in 2018 already. And we're constantly revamping it and updating it. That's something else we do because I'm always doing science and research. I'm updating it constantly. And they pay once and they have access to all the updates. There's no continuing education credits. You get the continuing education credits regardless. So, because I need my practitioners to be, up to date. So we did start that then, but what we do is, even though it's virtual, I'm online like I am with you now, always teaching them, and they can always come to me whenever they can get to Pennsylvania or if I'm in their area, and I will work with them. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I've got a woman coming up who's just a little further south in Pennsylvania, and I've got 2 bodies on the table, one for me to work on and demonstrate, just me and her, just as 2 of us, and then one for her to work on that'll help her. So I'm still the only person out there that actually does the teaching. As far as I have other students I am now training to be teachers. So when we can teach in larger live events again, like we taught at the Himalaya Institute one year, and I hired 3 of my first students to come help me teach because I wanted one teacher at each table. So I'd have 3 students on a table. One is the body, one watches, one does, and then they keep switching. And I want that focus. So that's the other thing is, if someone wants to learn this, now's the time, because I am 57, and when I'm 65, I'd like to retire and work with animals. So if you want to still learn from the creator and the master and then become the teacher, and now's the time. So I keep it small because this way I work with some of my students for over a year until they feel really, really comfortable with it, because everybody learns at a different level. So if they go through the virtual program, they can learn at whatever level that works with their kids, their work, everything else. And some people just dive right in and get through it quickly. So this way I tailor everything to everyone's needs. So that's why I interview people. So they can reach out to me. I'm going to get on a phone call with them, going to ask them what's important to them. What do they want out of this? Going to get to really know them first, because we're going to be working really closely together. So, yeah.
That's amazing. That's truly, truly amazing. I have to just say that, even just listening to you explain all about the program, I feel like, oh my God, I want to do the program. And, it's pretty funny. I actually came very close. I don't know if you remember that. I think it was maybe about 2 years ago when I really started diving very deeply into, the crystal bowls and all of that sound vibrational energy. It just resonated so, so much. So I encourage anyone who's watching this show today, just tune in to Lisa's website, take a look at some of the services that she offers. I may not have necessarily taken the course directly, but I can 100% say that I resonate with it. It's of such a high frequency and love. It's just so apparent in everything that you do. So just thank you for bringing that forward for all of us. It's incredible to kind of see how life brought you through all of these experiences, right? And at that very critical point for you, you had a decision to make, and you reached out for help, for guidance, for direction, and it came. And I feel like out of everything, that is such a huge core message that so many people have, that we find ourselves at that breaking point. And it's just at that moment when everything just unfolds, when you're open and you're willing. So thank you for being courageous enough to live that experience and then turn that into what you offer the world today, because that's just extraordinary. So thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you.
Matt, is there anything that you would like to add?
Just thank you so much. I mean, share your story is it's very enlightening. And it just gives everybody, like I said, a sense of who you are and knowing that they can do it too.
Yeah.
Just when you surrender and just open yourself up, arms open wide open, heart wide open, that's when all the magic happens.
That's
It
true.
really does.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
We came here with a plan and mission, and we just have to allow that
Mm-hmm.
come through, whatever that may be. And everyone's on a different path, and that's why I interview people. I tell people this may or may not be for you. Everyone's on a different path, and there are many roads that lead to the same thing. So maybe a different healing modality is something that someone might want. So I never want to say I'm the end all and be all, because that's certainly not it at all. It's the universe sends me people who are at that vibration and are ready for that. And maybe someone's ready for a different vibration or something. So we're all here. We're all one, and we're all here on our journey or path. And to find that middle way, as the Buddha said, and as Jesus said, and even the Kabbalah, you've got all those. If you take the middle way, that's the shortest way. And I'm a Libra, so I'm all about the middle way. Yeah, so we just have to find, what works for you, and it is often tragedy that does sometimes shake us up, and becoming such an intuitive through this, what was shown to me, and then I have friends who are Akashic record readers and whatnot, and we exchange, because I need confirmation. Did I hear this right? Because we don't always trust ourselves. And what they showed me was my contract was that, I had said that if I don't get to this certain point at a certain time in my life, pull the rug out from under me, you have my permission. And when I looked back at my life, there were other opportunities that could have brought me here faster, but I always said, I'm not ready yet. Literally, like when my father died, the next I ran home, of course, and be with my mother, and I was in my childhood bed. And that night he grabbed my ankle. I felt it physically. And his name, disembodied voice, Lisa. And I grabbed the covers and I pulled them up over my head. I'm not ready yet. And when I was 7 years old, I had an out of body experience. And I went to the light and I was like, oh my God, and I yelled, I'm not ready yet. And I got instantly back into my body. And this was like, you're ready, honey, or that's it.
This time we mean business.
You can get there the hard way or the easy way, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Exactly. Matt and I say that all the time, don't we, love?
And I've taken the long way instead of the shortcut. But
you learn more lessons along the way, then, right?
And you get there, and you appreciate it. Regardless how you get there, when you get there, you appreciate every moment.
Yes.
Yep.
Very true.
Absolutely. Yep. And we appreciate you being here, Lisa, once again.
Lisa.
Thank you so much for your time. For everyone who's tuning in, thank you so much. We really hope you enjoy this beautiful conversation that we've had today. And we hope you check out Lisa's website below. Be sure to save the date for the in-person expo for the Heart of Oneness Holistic Expo coming up at the New Jersey Convention and Exposition Center on August 13th through the 15th. And from our hearts to yours, much love, much peace, and be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.